Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Top 10 video. And in this video, we are going to be doing the Top 10 loops in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime history. Now, before we begin, some of you might be wondering what the definition of loop is. And there's actually two types of loops that we are going to be looking at. The most well-known is probably the infinite loop. And an infinite loop is just a never-ending cycle of effects which activate in response to each other, and there's nothing a player can do once the infinite loop has started in order to stop that loop from occurring. Now, the reason why this is not just top 10 infinite loops is because the infinite loop is extremely rare in Yu-Gi-Oh! Obviously, you do not want any game to trigger a state of infinite loop where a player can't do anything to stop it, and so this is something that has only happened in the anime like 2 or 3 times, whereas we've also gotten controlled loops. Now, controlled loops are also loops, but these are a series of voluntary actions that can be repeated as many times as a player wants. There's not an uncontrollable element to these, so a player can choose to stop them at any time, so these sorts of loops are legal and fine, which again is the major difference between the infinite loop, which a player has no control over once it's began. A quick example of this, the infinite loop that we saw Yugi do against Slifer in order to beat strings, that's a very famous one. A controlled loop, think of the Yuma and Vector situation with Dark Zexal, where Yuma had to keep attacking in order for the loop to be triggered, and if Yuma just stopped attacking, the loop wouldn't occur. We're also looking at a potential loop that almost happened in 5Ds that was actually negated, and the reason we're including that is because we just had to get to 10. This was a very, very hard list to compile because loops really don't happen all that much in Yu-Gi-Oh! And a huge shout out to these users in the Discord who helped me compile the list throughout all the various Yu-Gi-Oh! Shows. Hopefully I've done a good enough job explaining the difference between infinite loops and controlled loops, and without further ado, let's begin. These are my top 10 loops in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope you all enjoy. Number 10, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, Episode 61, Yuya's Loop versus Chojiro. So in Episode 61, Yuya was dueling Enjoy Tokumatsu, and he had Flower Cardian Light Shower on the field, which meant every time Yuya drew a card, Yuya would take 1,500 points of damage, so long as Chojiro skipped his draw phrase. Now, Chojiro also had Fraud Freeze, which prevented Yuya from performing a Pendulum Summon on his turn. So when Yuya had 1,000 life points remaining, and his next draw would result in defeat, Yuya of course drew Performapal Rain Goat, an effect he immediately activated, which discarded it to reduce the damage from Light Shower's effect to 0. Yuya then activated Performapal Teeter Totter Hopper from his graveyard because a monster was sent from the hand to the graveyard. Furthermore, when summoned by this effect, Teeter Totter Hopper cannot be destroyed by battle. Teeter Topper Hopper can be sent to the graveyard to add a level 3 or lower Performapal monster from the graveyard to the hand during the end phase. Yuya would use this effect to add Rain Goat back to his hand every turn, which prevented Chojiro from inflicting damage with Light Shower, and Light Shower wouldn't be able to destroy Teeter Topper Hopper due to its effect, which created a loop that can only be broken if Chojiro drew a card, which he did so on his next turn. It was a really great, innovative way for Yuya to create a loop that prevented Chojiro's lock from actually working. I do have it at number 10 because I feel like this one isn't really all that memorable, but it's still very cool nonetheless. Number 9, Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds, Episode 145, Yusei's Potential Loop versus Antinomy. So in the duel against Antinomy during the Neo Arc Cradle Arc, Yusei ended up special summoning Wild Heart in attack position. Well, Bruno quickly figured out that Yusei was planning to use Wild Heart to attack him directly. Although Wild Heart would be destroyed at the end of the damage step, the second effect of Shooting Star Dragon, which was on the field, will negate the effect of Wild Heart and destroy it. This would then activate the effect of Wild Heart and allow Yusei to revive it. Antinomy then quickly activated the first effect of TG Halberd Cannon, which negated the summon of Wild Heart altogether and destroyed it. This potential loop would have definitely won Yusei the duel, and if Antinomy didn't figure it out before the loop combo started, it would have been lights out for him. Now granted, the duel didn't really end in his favor anyway, but it shows how good of a duelist he was to have the foresight in order to dodge this one. Number 8, Yu-Gi-Oh! Vrains episode 102, Playmaker's Dark Fluid Loop versus Bowman. In the final turn of the duel, Playmaker hits a loop that ends up giving him the win against Bowman. Firewall Dark Fluid attacks Bowman's Perfectron Hydro Drive Dragon. Judgment Arrows increases Hydro Drive Dragon's attack to 8,000, and during the battle phase, the effect of Dark Fluid increases its attack by 2,500 for every counter on it, which boosts Dark Fluid's attack to 13,000. The effect of Perfectron reduces all battle damage to 0 while it has a Hydro Drive counter, and by removing one Hydro Drive counter, Bowman can prevent its destruction by battle. The other effect of Perfectron activates, which would destroy all monsters Playmaker controls, but thanks to the effect of Dark Fluid, as the opponent activated a monster effect, Playmaker can remove one counter to negate that effect and allow Dark Fluid to attack again. Both of these monsters had 4 counters on it, and at this point, the duel becomes a loop, where Dark Fluid continuously attacks Perfectron, Bowman uses the effect of Perfectron, Playmaker negates the effect using Dark Fluid, and eventually, Dark Fluid gets down to 3,000 attack, Perfectron has 0 attack, and Dark Fluid delivers a 3,000 attack point blow to Bowman, reducing his life points to 0, and winning Playmaker the duel. It's honestly an incredible combo, and as it was happening, I can't imagine being Bowman and just realizing the end is inevitable. Number 7, Yu-Gi-Oh! GX episode 64, Shows Loop versus Hassleberry. This one's interesting because a lot of people feel this is an infinite loop, but Hassleberry very clearly had a trap card that seemingly would have allowed him to get out of the loop. I'm not too familiar enough with the rulings, but because there seemed to have been a way for Hassleberry to get out of this one, I have it ranked a little lower. But in this duel, Cyrus coyly uses the effect of Hassleberry's Ultimate Tyranno in order to defeat him. Ultimate Tyranno can and must attack all monsters that the opponent controls once each, and due to the effect of Decoy Roid, Ultimate Tyranno attacks it first. When Decoy Roid is destroyed, the effect of Rescue Roid allows Sho to add Decoy Roid from his grave to his hand, upon which the effect of Ambulance Roid allows Cyrus to special summon Decoy Roid to the field, upon which Cyber Summon Blaster inflicts 300 damage to Hassleberry's life points. Ultimate Tyranno must attack again, and the process repeats itself until Hassleberry has no more life points remaining. Really, really cool move there by Sho, and hey, maybe he isn't as bad of a duelist as we all say he is. Number 6, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters episode 182, Yugi's Loop versus Dartz. This is a pretty simple one. Yami Yugi uses the effect of Legendary Knight Critias, which had absorbed the effect of Attack Guidance Barrier, and Legendary Knight Hermos to continuously redirect attacks between them, while another effect of Hermos increased its attack each time. Thanks to anime mechanics, this caused the attack of Hermos to become infinity, but I feel like if this actually happened in the game would just be over. Obviously, you're not going to reach infinity, and these monsters just bouncing attacks off of one another would eventually lead just to an infinite state. I'm not as confident on that one, and if you guys could maybe explain that a little better, please do. But yeah, anime logic, they become infinite attack, and they end up defeating Dartz thanks to that loop. Number 5, Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal episode 98, Vector's Loop versus Yuma. This cracks the top 5, and deservedly so. This Dark Zexal moment is one of my favorites in all of Yu-Gi-Oh! Zexal. Seeing Yuma just consistently flail to throw attacks at Vector, even though Vector's monster had an effect that allowed it to become 100 attack points higher than whatever his monsters was absolutely crazy. And because the Dark Zexal inflicted Yuma and Astral, they didn't realize the actual danger that they were in, and so every single time they were losing 100 life points. And thanks to the effect that prevents Masquerade from being destroyed, it allowed Utopia Ray V to continuously attack. So that's kind of how the loop worked. Masquerade would protect itself to allow Utopia Ray V another attack. Yuma would foolishly attack thanks to the corruption, and then Masquerade would just not let itself be destroyed and give Utopia Ray V another attack. Yuma finally snapped out of it after he tackled Astral through a metaphorical glass pane. It's an incredibly cool scene, and it kicks off our top 5. Number 4, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 episode 133, Yuri's Loop versus Yusho. Man, watching Yuri duel Priest Arc was an absolute treat. Yuri activates the effect of Star Venom Fusion Dragon, targeting Yusho's Performapal Sky Magician to gain its attack. However, he chains the effect of Clearwing Synchro Dragon, which destroys Star Venom and gains Star Venom's attack. Yuri then activates Flower of Destruction and Fruit of Destruction, with the latter reducing the attack of Clearwing by 3,000 to summon back Star Venom, and the former inflicting damage to Yusho and reducing the attack of Sky Magician equal to the difference between current and original attack of Clearwing, which was initially 200. As Star Venom was just summoned again, Yuri triggered the combo by activating the effect again, and the loop was repeated 5 times, with the damage increasing by 200 points each time until the attack of Sky Magician dropped to 0 and Yusho's life points to 200. Yuri could have done the loop once more, however, he just decided to attack with Star Venom instead, brutally defeating Yusho as his son had to helplessly watch on. This one deserves to be high. Definitely check it out if you don't remember it. It's absolutely sick. Number 3, Yu-Gi-Oh! The Dark Side of Dimensions, Yugi's Loop versus Aigami. What a clever way to have Yugi defeat the main villain of the movie. Absolutely love it. Yugi basically had 3 cards that created a triangle loop, as he called it in the movie. Lord Gaia was being attacked by Aigami's Doom Volt. Since Doom Volt had more than twice Lord Gaia's attack, the effect of Dimension Sphinx inflicted damage to Aigami equal to the difference between the battling monster's attack, and then due to the effect of Dimension Guardian, Lord Gaia was not destroyed by that battle, allowing Yugi to activate the effect of Dimension Mirage, banishing a monster from his graveyard to force Doom Volt to attack Lord Gaia again, once again triggering the effect of Dimension Sphinx. Yugi repeated this loop by banishing monsters until he depleted Aigami's life points. Now, this loop wouldn't work if you didn't have monsters in your grave. That wasn't a problem for Yugi, and because this was on literally the big screen, it was on one of the biggest stages a Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel can have, I have this one ranked considerably high on the list. Number 2, Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5, Episode 99, Akaba Reiji's Loop versus Jean-Michel Roget. This one makes such incredible use of the intrusion penalty mechanic that only Arc 5 had. If you intruded into a duel, you immediately lose 2,000 life points, and this loop inflicts exactly that, 2,000 points of damage, which is enough to continuously defeat Roget. Roget was also dueling basically from like a virtual reality set, and he was just going to keep dueling Reiji until he was able to beat him. So Reiji had to do something so significant that was basically just going to crush Jean-Michel Roget's spirit, and that's exactly what he did. This combo is honestly crazy. I mean, it's DDD, so obviously it's crazy. You know, people that play that deck have a whole spreadsheet that they got to follow for all the combos. So I'm not going to read it, but basically, Reiji was able to repeat a combo that inflicted 2,000 points of damage, which meant every time that Jean-Michel Roget joined the duel, or rejoined the duel, I should say, he would take 2,000 points of damage from the intrusion penalty, and then 2,000 points from the controlled loop that Reiji put him into. A genius move, and I love that it played to some of the unique elements of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Arc 5 anime. Number 1, Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters Episode 67, Yugi's Loop versus Strings. Okay, I know it was on the thumbnail, I know I talked about it in the intro, but this is the most iconic and famous loop in all of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime. I couldn't not put this at number 1. It's a classic. Strings as Yugi totally against the wall. He's got Slifer, Revival Jam, Infinite Cards, Card of Safe Return, and Jam Defender in his Spell and Trap Zone. This duel is over, but somehow Atem figures it out. He attacks Slifer with Buster Blader, which causes Strings to use Jam Defender to make Revival Jam sacrifice itself to stop the attack. Yugi then uses Brain Control to take Revival Jam onto his side of the field, and Card of Safe Return causes Strings to draw 3 cards. Slifer's second Mouth effect causes it to destroy Revival Jam, which of course revives Revival Jam on Yugi's field, which triggers an infinite loop. Slifer attacks Revival Jam, draws 3 cards, Revival Jam revives, and eventually Strings doesn't have any cards left to draw and decks out. It's one of the most baller moments, I think, of honestly Yami Yugi's dueling career. This was such a clever and intuitive way to win, and this is, of course, one of the rare infinite loops in the Yu-Gi-Oh! Anime, and I think it's the best loop that we've ever seen from an iconic perspective and just I mean, he used it to beat a freaking god. Like, it doesn't get much cooler than that. And guys, that wraps it up. I hope you enjoyed the top 10 Yu-Gi-Oh! Loops. I hope I did a good job of explaining how most of them worked. Of course, I did have the episode number in all of them, so please feel free to check out the episode and these combos if you just want a little bit more clarification. If I misexplained anything or left anything out, and I'm sure I did, please feel free to comment your thoughts down below. And if there were any potential loops that I missed, I know we got about 11 or 12 when I compiled it with the people over on Discord. Again, shout out to them who helped me out with this list. So if I missed any that you felt deserved to make this list, please let me know down below in the comments. As always, thank you guys so much for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day. Take care, everyone.